VI.wmv shows no related correlation to the exchange rate. So we can find just you said also maybe the exchange rate have less correlation with the trade surplus. Actually, according to my study, the empirical evidence, the coefficient of the trade surplus with the domestic consumer in US dollar is about 2.75 around something. However, the coefficient of exchange rate and the trade surplus is only about 0.5 or something. So if we say there is some effect of the exchange rate on China's trade surplus, I would say it is very small, maybe 10% something. And what the macroeconomic situation or the macroeconomic challenges in China is facing is because of it's the inflation that comes from the crisis policies. Actually, we can find that's the annual data. We can find before 2009, the net export have a positive contribution to economic growth in China. But in 2009, the net export contribution to growth is negative. Well, in order to keep a stable economic growth, I would say the economic growth rather than inflation or the unemployment is the first priority on the policy goals in China. And we can find in order to achieve a constant growth, the investment contribution was increased very large. Here is the quarterly data, also show the same things. What the investment was made, here is we can find the right line. Right line is the investment by state budget. Here we can find just after the impact of the crisis in the autumn of 2008, the investment by state budget increased very fast. However, it was decreased maybe a year later. But it was supported later by the investment by domestic loans. And here is the banking credit extended in China. Here we can also find from the autumn of 2008, it was increased very sharply. Where to those bank loans come from, goes to. Here we can find at the beginning, as the right line shows, is the loans to non-financial corporation in other sectors is increased very fast. But it was also decreased about a year later. However, just before the loans to non-financial corporation in the other sector decreased, the loans to household sector was increased. That means the real estate loans, the mortgage loans, is increased. So we can find the relation between the real estate price and the CPI in China. It's actually the real estate price increased January 1st, and then the CPI will increase. So the real estate price in China may be a leading indicators of the CPI. That means with the fiscal expansion in terms of the loan, the state budget investment and bank loans to household sectors, it made the real estate price higher in China and put inflation pressure. We talked about the investment before. Here we talk about the monetary policy. Actually, before the crisis, in autumn of 2008, we can find the monetary base in China already increased. However, when the impact of the crisis came at the autumn of 2008, the M1 and M2 in China increased very much. And also with the easing policy, China have low interest rate. I mean the negative real interest rate, because a lower nominal interest rate in the higher inflation. So the real interest rate is negative. However, from the perspective of the monetary school, there's also a strong relation between the monetary base and CPI inflation. Here we can find here. So that means the easy monetary policy in China also gave inflation pressure. Here we can find the movement of the Shibor, something like the Libor is the interbank offering rates. Here we can find is the impact of the crisis on 2008, autumn of 2008. Is the interest rate, the Shibor was decreased very sharply. However, from the mid of 2010, the Shibor gradually increased. That means the market expectation for inflation. And now, the Shibor became really higher, almost the same level before the crisis, even though we have easing monetary policy. Here, the final result is the inflation pressure in China. Here we can find that the blue one is the headline CPI, and the red line is the core CPI. And even though the headline CPI is not higher than the level before the crisis, however, the core inflation, the core CPI in China, is higher than the core CPI before the crisis. That means here we can find the primary commodity price index of on the world market. We can find since the earlier 2009, the primary commodity market commodity price increase on world market. But here we can find a more faster growth increase of the core inflation in China. That means there's really inflation pressure in China already, rather than important inflation. We just talk about the inflation pressure from the perspective of domestic policies. And now we turn to the international perspective about the effect of the quantitative easing policy, monetary policy in the United States, like the QE1 and the QE2, on the China economy by the capital inflow also. Here, even though China is have a strictly control over the financial account, but there's still a lot of hot money inflow to China. Here we can find it. Here's the pattern. The right line is the financial account inflow, capital inflow under the financial account. It's composed by three items. The one is the FDI, the blue one I found. That is very small. And the green one is the security investment or portfolio investment. yes, it is really strictly controlled by China. So the level, the contribution of the portfolio investment to the financial account is also very small. The financial account was dominated by other investment. That means the trade credit, the bank loans, something that is hard to be supervised, to be regulated. There must be a lot of hard money in terms of the other investment in terms of the trade credits. And here's the balance of the financial account. Here we can find the FDI is somewhat stable, and the portfolio is fluctuate. And more important is the other investment also fluctuate as the same trends of the portfolio investment. That may also suggest the other investment in China maybe integrate a lot of hard money. If we just define the hard money as the foreign exchange assets of central bank minus trade balance minus FDI, here we can find the result, the black line. The total balance of the hard money inflow even sometimes higher than the balance under the financial account. So the hard money inflow in China is very serious. Here is the estimation of the absolute amount of the hard money inflow. And here is I'm trying to have estimation about the relation between the capital inflow, the hard money, and the exchange market pressure, EMP. Here we can find, since the financial turmoil is almost the same trend, that means the capital inflow is the main factor that affected the demand and the supply on the exchange market in China. And also, the hard money inflow have the same movement with the Shanghai stock market exchange. That means maybe the assets bubble also accumulated with the hard money inflow. Here is the sterilization and the inflation pressures. We can find if there is a more capital inflow, it must have a sterilization operation by PBOC, the People's Bank of China, the Central Bank of China, and also suggesting increasing inflation pressure. So here is actually this phenomenon is not only for China. We can find for Asian countries compared to the crisis about 15 years ago, in the Asia financial crisis, we can find a lot of Asia currency